Standing in that upscale Dallas restaurant, I never imagined my sister's whispered words to the waiter would unravel 23 years of lies. The dim lighting couldn't hide the venom in Jessica's voice as she hissed, "Don't serve her," while pointing at me. Before I reveal what the waiter's shocking response exposed about my family, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Hit that like button if you've ever discovered a family secret that changed everything you thought you knew. My name is Sarah Martinez, and I grew up believing I was the family disappointment in suburban Houston, Texas. Our sprawling ranch house with perfectly manicured lawns told one story, but inside lived a different reality entirely. Dad worked as a successful oil engineer, while Mom managed her boutique marketing firm from home. We weren't just comfortable, we were genuinely wealthy, with summer homes and luxury cars that spoke of serious money. Jessica was 2 years older and everything I apparently wasn't: blonde, confident, and effortlessly popular. From childhood, the pattern was devastatingly clear to everyone who knew us, including extended family and neighbors. She received the expensive clothes, the latest iPhone models, and college prep courses that cost more than most people's cars. Meanwhile, I got hand-me-downs, discount store electronics, and constant reminders that money didn't grow on trees, especially for me. The difference in treatment was so stark that family friends would sometimes ask uncomfortable questions at gatherings. "Why does Jessica get ballet lessons while Sarah doesn't?" Aunt Maria once inquired during a 4th of July barbecue. Mom would smile tightly and explain that Jessica had natural talent that deserved investment, while I was still finding my path. Even at 12 years old, I understood the coded language. Jessica was worth the money, and I wasn't. School events highlighted the disparity in ways that left lasting scars on my young psyche. For Jessica's high school graduation, our parents threw an elaborate party with catering, professional photography, and family flying in from across Texas. When my graduation came around 2 years later, we went to Olive Garden with just immediate family. "We're saving money for Jessica's college expenses," Dad explained when I asked about the difference in celebration scale. The college conversation that would define our relationship happened during my junior year of high school. Jessica was already at UT Austin, living in an expensive off-campus apartment paid for entirely by our parents. I had been working part-time at a local coffee shop since 15, saving every dollar for my own future education. That Tuesday evening in March, Mom called a family meeting in our formal dining room. "Sarah, we need to discuss your college plans realistically," Dad announced, his hands folded professionally on the polished mahogany table. "Your grades are decent, but Jessica's academic performance has been exceptional, requiring significant ongoing investment from us." Mom nodded in agreement, adding that they had to make strategic decisions about resource allocation. The business-like language couldn't disguise what they were really saying. I wasn't worth the investment. "What about my 3.8 GPA and my job experience?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. I had been working 20 hours weekly while maintaining honor roll status, thinking my parents would be proud. Dad dismissed my achievements with a wave of his hand, explaining that Jessica's 4.0 and her leadership positions were more impressive and showed real potential for success. The final blow came when Mom suggested I consider community college first, maybe transfer later if I proved myself. Meanwhile, Jessica was planning a study abroad semester in Europe for the following year, fully funded by our parents. "It's an incredible opportunity for her personal growth," Mom gushed when I pointed out the cost disparity. The message was crystal clear. Jessica deserved opportunities, and I deserved whatever was left over. That night, alone in my room with its discount furniture and hand-painted walls, I made a decision that would change everything. I would attend university anyway, finance my own education, and prove my worth through achievements they couldn't ignore. The next morning, I began researching scholarships, grants, and student loans with the determination of someone who had nothing left to lose. My guidance counselor, Mrs. Thompson, became my greatest ally in this seemingly impossible quest. Through months of relentless effort, I pieced together enough financial aid to attend Texas A&M University's business program. Between academic scholarships, federal grants, and student loans, I had barely enough to cover tuition and basic expenses. Housing would require living in a tiny apartment, 40 minutes from campus, with 3 roommates I found through online forums. My parents showed no interest in my acceptance letter or my financial aid success. The contrast between our send-offs was heartbreaking, yet motivating in ways I couldn't have anticipated. Jessica received a brand new SUV for her sophomore year, complete with a fully stocked dorm room and emotional farewell party. I packed my belongings into garbage bags and drove my decade-old Honda Civic, purchased with my coffee shop savings, to my new life in College Station. Nobody offered to help me move or check if my car was reliable for the 2-hour drive. University life hit me like a hurricane of responsibility and exhaustion that nearly broke my spirit. While most students adjusted to freedom and parties, I balanced 30 work hours weekly with a full course load. My typical day started at 5 a.m. with studying, followed by morning classes, afternoon shifts at a campus bookstore, evening classes, and late-night studying. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford, and social life was non-existent by necessity. Despite the crushing schedule, something unexpected began happening. I was excelling academically in ways that surprised even me. Years of practical work experience and financial responsibility had prepared me for real-world business concepts my classmates struggled with. Professor Davidson, my business ethics instructor, pulled me aside after class one day to say my case study analysis showed remarkable maturity and practical insight. During this time, I formed an unlikely friendship with my roommate Maria, who noticed my punishing schedule and began leaving homemade meals with my name on them. "You can't survive on energy bars and determination alone," she said one evening, setting down a plate of her grandmother's enchiladas. When I tried to pay her, she refused, explaining that her family believed in taking care of each other. Sometimes the family we choose matters more than the one we're born into. By sophomore year, my academic performance had caught the attention of the business department faculty. Professor Davidson recommended me for a research assistant position studying small business resilience during economic downturns. The flexible hours accommodated my class schedule, and the intellectual stimulation was a welcome change from retail work. More importantly, the professor took genuine interest in my future and entrepreneurial ideas. Working with real business data sparked an idea that had been forming since high school. Using skills from my marketing classes, I created a simple online platform offering virtual assistant services to local small businesses. Working late into the night, I built a website and developed service packages tailored to needs I had observed through my research work and various jobs. By junior year, my small business was generating enough income to quit my retail job entirely. I maintained the research position more for mentorship than money, while my virtual assistant work evolved into a proper digital marketing agency. The business not only covered my living expenses, but began generating enough profit to start paying down my student loans early, something I hadn't dared dream possible. Meanwhile, Jessica's college experience took an unexpected turn during her junior year when she faced her first real academic challenge. The business program's demanding senior capstone requirements exposed gaps in her work ethic and practical skills. Years of having everything provided had left her unprepared for genuine difficulty. She called home crying multiple times per week, requiring constant emotional support and academic tutoring that our parents gladly provided. The irony wasn't lost on me that while Jessica struggled with theoretical business concepts, I was successfully running an actual business that employed 6 part-time student workers. My agency was featured in the university newspaper and caught the attention of the local Chamber of Commerce. Yet when I mentioned these achievements during rare family phone calls, the response was always lukewarm at best. "That's nice, dear," Mom would say, before immediately asking about Jessica's latest crisis. Senior year brought the opportunity that would change everything. Professor Davidson nominated me for the Texas Young Entrepreneur Competition. The statewide contest offered a $75,000 grand prize plus mentorship opportunities with established business leaders. With her guidance, I spent weeks refining my business plan and practicing my pitch. After 3 rounds of increasingly competitive judging, I advanced to the final round scheduled for April. The notification email that I had won arrived on a Tuesday morning while I was between classes. Sitting on a bench outside the business building, I read and reread the message confirming my victory. The prize money would completely eliminate my student debt while providing startup capital for expanding my agency. More importantly, the recognition validated everything I'd worked toward for 4 grueling years. The university press release about my win made the front page of both the campus newspaper and the local business journal. The story detailed my journey from self-financing freshman to award-winning entrepreneur, highlighting how I had built a successful business while maintaining a 3.9 GPA. When I called to share the news with my parents, Dad's response was a distracted, "That's great, honey," before immediately changing the subject to Jessica's upcoming job interviews. Graduation planning revealed the final insult I had come to expect from my family. Jessica's graduation 2 years earlier had been celebrated with an elaborate party, professional photography, and relatives flying in from across the country. For mine, Mom suggested a quiet family dinner at a mid-range restaurant, explaining they were keeping things simple this year due to financial constraints. The same year they had paid for Jessica's expensive study abroad program. 3 weeks before graduation, I received an unexpected call from the university president's office. Dean Rodriguez explained that they selected one exceptional student annually to deliver the student address at commencement. "Your story embodies everything we hope to instill in our graduates," she said. "Determination, innovation, and the courage to create your own opportunities when others don't believe in you." I accepted immediately, knowing this would be my moment to publicly claim my achievements. The day before graduation, our extended family gathered in Dallas for what was supposedly a celebration for both Jessica and me. The upscale restaurant my parents chose, Meridian Prime, was the kind of place where appetizers cost more than I used to spend on groceries for a week. The family filled 2 large tables, with aunts, uncles, cousins, and grandparents who had flown in from across Texas and New Mexico. As we were seated, I noticed the stark difference in attention immediately. Jessica held court at the center table, regaling everyone with stories about her new job at a marketing firm in Austin. Meanwhile, I sat at the edge of the second table with my younger cousins, listening to relatives ask Jessica detailed questions about her future while barely acknowledging my presence. The pattern of favoritism continued even into adulthood. When Uncle Carlos asked about my post-graduation plans, I mentioned my business and the Entrepreneurship Award. Before I could elaborate, Jessica interrupted loudly. "Oh, Sarah's been playing around with some little online thing. Very cute hobby project." The dismissive tone and the family's immediate return of attention to Jessica's corporate job felt like a familiar slap. Nobody asked for details about my hobby project or its 6-figure revenue. As dinner progressed, the conversation naturally turned to celebrating both graduates. Dad stood to make a toast, raising his wine glass with practiced formality. To Jessica, for her outstanding academic achievements and her bright future in marketing. And to Sarah, for graduating too. The afterthought toast stung, but I had learned to expect nothing more from my parents by now. That's when Jessica made the comment that would change everything forever. As our waiter, a distinguished gentleman in his 50s named Marcus, approached our table to take dessert orders, Jessica leaned over and whispered loud enough for me to hear, "Don't serve her anything expensive. She can't afford it anyway." Her cruel smile suggested she thought this was somehow funny, another way to publicly diminish me in front of our family. Marcus paused mid-step, his professional composure flickering for just a moment before he walked directly to me instead of Jessica. "Ms. Martinez," he said with surprising warmth, "it's an absolute honor to serve you tonight. I read about your Entrepreneurship Award in the Dallas Business Journal last week. Truly inspiring story." The entire family table fell silent, confusion evident on every face as they processed this unexpected recognition. "I'm sorry, do you two know each other?" Mom asked, her voice tight with bewilderment. Marcus smiled politely but kept his attention focused on me. "Not personally, but Ms. Martinez's story has been making rounds in the local business community. Building a successful digital marketing agency while financing your own education? That takes incredible determination and business acumen. Jessica's face had gone completely pale, her earlier confidence evaporating as the waiter continued praising my achievements. The article mentioned your agency now employs 12 people and has clients across 3 states. Marcus continued, clearly knowledgeable about details my own family had never bothered to learn. And winning the Texas Young Entrepreneur Competition as a full-time student? That's remarkable. The prize money alone was what, $75,000? The number hung in the air as my relative's expressions shifted from confusion to shock. Uncle Carlos leaned forward, his businessman instincts clearly engaged. $75,000? Sarah, why didn't you mention this was such a significant competition? Before I could answer, Jessica interjected desperately. It's probably just some small local thing. Not that impressive, really. But Marcus shook his head respectfully, addressing the entire table now with professional authority. Actually, the Texas Young Entrepreneur Competition is highly prestigious statewide. Only the top business minds under 25 are even eligible to compete. Ms. Martinez beat out over 300 applicants from universities across Texas, including UT, Rice, and Texas Tech. The waiter's words landed like bombs across our family gathering, and I watched as the carefully constructed narrative about Jessica being the successful daughter began crumbling in real time. Aunt Carmen, who had been quietly observing the entire exchange, spoke up with growing excitement. Sarah, are you telling us you own an actual business? Like a real company with employees and everything? Marcus nodded before I could respond, clearly enjoying the opportunity to share what he knew. From what I read, her digital marketing agency specializes in helping small businesses establish online presence. Very innovative approach to an underserved market. The article also mentioned she accomplished all this while working multiple jobs to pay her own way through college, Marcus added, looking pointedly at my parents. No family financial support, if I recall correctly. Makes the achievement even more impressive. The waiter's words cut through the restaurant's ambient noise like a blade, and I could practically feel my parents shrinking in their seats as relatives began connecting the dots. Grandma Rosa, my father's mother, turned to look at my parents with an expression I'd never seen before. Robert, Diana, what does he mean by no family financial support? Didn't you help Sarah with college like you did Jessica? The question hung heavy in the suddenly uncomfortable silence, and I watched my father's face cycle through embarrassment, anger, and something that might have been shame. Jessica, sensing the conversation spiraling away from her control, attempted damage control. Well, Sarah always preferred to be independent. She never really asked for help. But Marcus, still standing beside our table with professional dignity, addressed her directly. Actually, the article specifically quoted Ms. Martinez, saying she financed her entire education through scholarships, loans, and her business income, because family support wasn't available to her. The revelation hit the family like a physical force, and suddenly every relative was looking at my parents with new understanding. Uncle Carlos, never one to avoid uncomfortable conversations, asked bluntly, "Are you saying you paid for Jessica's entire college experience but made Sarah figure it out on her own?" The question demanded an answer that my parents clearly weren't prepared to give. Mom attempted weak damage control, her voice shaking slightly. "It's complicated, Carlos. Sarah was always so independent, and Jessica needed more guidance." But Aunt Carmen cut her off sharply, her voice rising with indignation. Independent? She was 17 years old, Diana. What 17-year-old doesn't need help with college? The family gathering had transformed into an uncomfortable reckoning that years of careful image management couldn't hide. Marcus, sensing the family tension his words had unleashed, maintained his professional composure while continuing to address me directly. The article also mentioned your company is expanding into Austin and San Antonio next quarter. That kind of growth trajectory is exactly what investors look for in emerging businesses. Each detail he shared about my success made Jessica's earlier dismissal of my hobby project sound more ridiculous and cruel. Investors, Grandma Rosa repeated, her weathered hands gripping the table edge. Sarah, does this mean your little computer business is actually worth real money? Marcus nodded respectfully before I could downplay anything. According to the Business Journal, her agency is projected to generate over $400,000 in revenue this year. Quite impressive for a recent graduate's first venture. The number hit the table like a thunderclap, and I watched my family's expressions transform from confusion to shock to something approaching awe. Dad, who had always dismissed my business aspirations as unrealistic dreams, sat frozen with his wine glass halfway to his lips. Jessica looked like she might actually faint, her carefully constructed identity as the family success story crumbling before everyone's eyes. $400,000? Uncle Carlos whistled low, his respect evident. Sarah, that's more than most people make in corporate jobs after 10 years of experience. And you built this from scratch while in college. The pride in his voice was something I had never heard from my own parents, and it filled a hollow space in my chest I hadn't realized was still aching for family validation. As Marcus finally moved on to take other tables' orders, the family dinner devolved into an uncomfortable confrontation that had been years in the making. Relatives who had previously focused all their attention on Jessica now peppered me with questions about my business, my achievements, and my future plans. The contrast with their earlier dismissal was stark, and I found myself fielding more genuine interest in 30 minutes than I had received from my family in 4 years. So when you said earlier that Sarah's business was just a hobby project, Aunt Carmen addressed Jessica directly, you knew it was actually a nearly $500,000 company? Jessica's face flushed red as she struggled to respond, her usual confidence completely shattered. I didn't know all the details, she stammered, but her earlier dismissive tone had been captured by everyone present. Dad attempted to regain control of the narrative, his voice artificially jovial. Well, this is wonderful news about Sarah's little venture. We're very proud of both our daughters' achievements. But Grandma Rosa wasn't having any of his revisionist history. Proud? Robert, you just toasted Jessica's corporate job while treating Sarah's business success like an afterthought. How exactly does that show pride? The uncomfortable truth hung over our table like a storm cloud, and I realized this moment was bigger than just family drama. Years of being underestimated, dismissed, and treated as less worthy had led to this public reckoning where my actual worth could no longer be denied. Jessica's whispered instruction to the waiter not to serve me anything expensive had backfired spectacularly, exposing not just her cruelty, but the entire family's misguided priorities. As we left the restaurant that night, with relatives still buzzing about my business success and asking for my contact information, I felt a weight lifting that I hadn't realized I'd been carrying. The little girl who had been told she wasn't worth investing in had become a woman whose achievements spoke louder than any family recognition ever could. Sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't planned at all. It's simply living well enough that the truth becomes impossible to hide. What family secrets have shaped your life? Share your story in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe if this journey of overcoming low expectations resonated with you.